I happen to be, or to hold the UNESCO chair on diversity and justice, and I think I find myself much more, perhaps, engaged and interested in proceedings tonight from a notion of recognition and justice than I am here as director of the Institute. We all have ethical dilemmas that we face on a daily basis, but there is nothing, in my view, bigger and more impactful and more touching than issues to do with Indigenous Australians. And I say this because everywhere I go, and I go a lot, travel a lot, the first topic that people outside of Australia would like to discuss with us, people coming from Australia, is what have you done to Aboriginal Australians? And I can tell you, sometimes I do not find the words to answer some of those questions.
This year marks the 40th anniversary of the passage of the federal land rights law in the Northern Territory. When it was proposed, this was crash-through, path-breaking policy making that can be attributed very directly to the policy bravery of Gough Whitlam. Whitlam astutely established a Royal Commission to implement his vision. In 1974, Royal Commissioner Justice Edward Woodward said two things that still resonate today. First, that the aim of land rights is the doing of simple justice to a people who have been deprived of their land without their consent and without compensation. This simple justice has still not been done in Victoria 40 years on. And second, and using the language of the day, Woodward said, Aborigines should be free to choose their own manner of living. This is something that seems to me to be embodied in the call for a treaty and self-determination.
This is an example of how treaty can work. This was an as-if pilot for 13 children that were on long-term orders. And if you're in child protection, you know that long-term orders usually equate to children being permanently removed and placed in out-of-home care. We undertook this as-if pilot for 13 children. The hardest part for me was actually writing to the parents to ask the parents of those 13 children, would they let me be the guardian? And all of those parents agreed to that. The amazing thing was that when we did the guardianship of those 13 children, they'd been in care for between 2 to 5 years, and the long-term plan was for them to stay where they were. Most of them were in non-Aboriginal care. When we took the guardianship on, 6 of those 13 children went home. Now, anybody working in child welfare would know one child going home that's in permanent care is a big gain. To have 6 children go home. Currently in Victoria, there are 1,700 Aboriginal children in out-of-home care, and less than 10% of those are with Aboriginal carers. So we have a really big issue around where our children are, and quite clearly, the future looks like we will have another group of children that will be lost to the Aboriginal community.
No government's ever allowed the Aboriginal community to pick its own team. It's essentially always picked the team. And I use a maybe bad sporting analogy given my background. It's sort of like having 2 teams and one team decides where they're going to play, when they're going to play, where they're going to play, and who's going to be on the opposition. And there's no way knowing that that's fair on any measure. That is just so unfair. And that has been happening to the Aboriginal community for too long by successive governments.
In a far deeper and more profound way, Aboriginal people are saying, we don't want to ask you if you might agree to recognise us in your illegal founding document. Our sovereignty stands and we will assert it. And a treaty is a legal process which enables that standing to be recognised.
For us, a treaty is a mechanism agreed to by all that recognises our status as the first peoples of this land, including the right to make our own decisions about our own lives. It may in fact end up being called something else, but the key point about it is that it should be an agreement between governments and us, now and into the future, of our right to make our own decisions about all aspects of our lives. It means that we should not be at the mercy of policy decisions made by others according to the shades of their political thinking every 3 to 4 years.